The twin suns of Alaris burned pale and distant beyond the crystalline spires of the palace. Their light scattered through the domed ceilings, turning every shard of glass into a gleaming ribbon of violet fire. Below that eternal radiance sat Queen Seraphine of Aurelia, the last empress of the Illyrian dominion, a monarch whose beauty was both ethereal and terrible. Her eyes shimmered with a cold gleam of nebulae, her skin pale as frost, and her voice, when she spoke, could command armies to rise or burn entire worlds. But on this day, the queen sat not upon her throne of light, but on the balcony that overlooked the endless expanse of her empire. She watched fleets drift across the stars, their engines glowing blue as they patrolled the boundaries of her realm. The galaxy was quiet, for now, and yet, within that peace lingered a strange unease, something human. A soft footstep echoed behind her. It did not belong to a soldier, nor to an attendant. It belonged to him. Commander Cale Ardent, once a soldier of the Terran vanguard, a human species once thought extinct after the wars of the Illyrian fleets, walked into the chamber wearing the silvery robes of her consort. The weight of his past hung behind his calm demeanor, though his presence never sought to dominate. He was quiet, intelligent, and impossibly kind. He had been chosen, by fate or defiance, to stand beside the Queen of 1,000 worlds. "Your fleets are restless," Cale said softly, approaching the railing. "Even peace feels like a battle waiting to begin." Seraphine didn't turn to face him. "You've learned quickly, human. Peace among empires is just the silence between storms." He smiled faintly. "And yet, you brought me into that storm." Her gaze flicked toward him, sharp yet unreadable. "Do you regret it?" "Regret?" Cale looked out toward the stars. "No, but I do wonder why the most feared monarch in the galaxy would marry a man she once held captive." That question hung between them like a blade balanced on air. The Queen's gamble. Seraphine's marriage to Cale had not been born of love. Not at first. It was a political maneuver, a declaration to her council and her enemies that the Illyrian Empire could unify with the last remnants of humanity, a symbol of dominance and mercy, both at once. But over time, something had shifted. He had softened the edges of her loneliness. He had made her laugh, once, a sound her attendants had not heard in centuries. Still, she did not fully trust him. How could she? The man carried the blood of a species that had once defied her ancestors, had scarred the empire in wars long buried in starlit memory. Yet he looked at her not with fear or hatred, but with something alien to her kind, compassion. He was a mystery she could neither conquer nor dismiss. Her advisor, High Chancellor Vorith, had warned her from the beginning. "A human cannot be tamed, my queen. They are unpredictable, primitive. If you keep him at your side, he will one day turn that heart of his into a weapon." And yet, every time she looked into Cale's eyes, she saw not the rage of his extinct kin, but the calm of a man who had seen death and chosen peace. Perhaps that was what frightened her most. A world of light and shadow. The Illyrian capital, Solara Prime, was the most magnificent world, and the Orion Spur cities floated upon crystal seas and bridges of energy-connected continents. The Illyrian people, luminous and tall, carried the gift of psionic energy, the ability to shape matter and light with their minds. They lived centuries, guided by logic and hierarchy. Emotion was weakness. Attachment, dangerous. Cale's presence among them was an anomaly. Wherever he walked, Illyrian nobles would whisper, "The Queen's pet, the fragile Terran, the outsider." But Cale never responded. He moved with quiet dignity, learning their customs, adapting, even owning the respect of the palace guards who once despised him. He sparred with them daily, though never used his full strength. He spoke with the scholars of the archives, absorbing alien philosophy with ease. And though Seraphine never admitted it aloud, she began to rely on him in matters beyond the throne. The council's suspicion. One evening, as the moons of Solara Prime aligned, a rare celestial event known as a convergence of veils, the High Council convened in the Grand Chamber. Seraphine sat upon her throne of mirrored light, Kale standing a few steps behind her, as was tradition for royal consorts. Voritha's voice thundered across the hall. "Your Majesty, we cannot ignore the growing unrest in the outer colonies. The Aurelian alliance gathers strength beyond the ecliptic rim. They test our borders." Seraphine's voice was calm, but her tone carved through the tension. "And our fleets?" "Ready, but hesitant. They whisper of your human companion. They question if your judgment has been compromised." Kale stiffened, but Seraphine raised a hand before he could speak. "My judgment built this empire from the ashes of 10 rebellions, Vorith. Do you doubt it now because I chose mercy over annihilation?" The Chancellor bowed, but his words carried venom. "We doubt not your wisdom, my queen, but the influence of alien blood." The chamber went silent. Kale's voice, quiet but clear, broke the stillness. "If you fear my blood, Chancellor, then perhaps you've forgotten that it was Terran engineers who built the first warp drives you now use. Our blood built the stars you claim." A murmur rippled through the council. Voritha's eyes narrowed. "You speak boldly for one who was once chained." Kale met his gaze without flinching. "Freedom teaches boldness." Seraphine rose slowly from her throne, her aura blazing like a nova. "Enough. The next one who questions my decisions will find themselves commanding mining drones on a barren moon. My consort speaks as my equal. Remember that." The council fell to one knee in unison, their luminous forms dimmed with submission. But as Seraphine turned to leave, Kale caught a flicker of something in Voritha's mind. A psychic tremor, a hatred buried deep beneath obedience. A whisper not meant for mortal ears. The human must die before he ruins her. Kale said nothing, but a cold, instinctive dread coiled inside him.